Alone in the city, farmer abandons love, then a shocking reunion changes everything forever. Jackson stood at the edge of the bustling city, a world bustling with strangers, neon lights, and relentless noise. He felt a pang of regret because he had left everything behind: the warm embrace of Sarah, the rich earth of his family farm, and the simple life that filled his lungs with fresh, sweet air. The moment he took that first step into the concrete jungle, the city enveloped him, pulling him deeper into its depths. He knew he was searching for something, but it felt more like he was fleeing a part of himself. Days turned into nights, and every corner turned held a whisper of secrets. Taxis screeched by, street vendors shouted their offerings, while laughter bubbled up from darkened bars. Then, it happened, a bizarre encounter at an unassuming coffee shop. Jackson sat alone, nursing a lukewarm brew, when he felt a shiver crawl up his spine. Outside, a storm brewed. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the cityscape in fleeting clarity. In that flash, he saw her. Sarah. But she wasn't just standing there, she was with someone else. Jackson's heart raced. Was it his imagination? No, it couldn't be. His chest tightened as memories of their shared dreams flooded back, dreams he had tossed aside in search of the city's hollow promises. The lump in his throat nearly choked him. He wanted to call out, to reach through the glass that separated them, but fear gripped him. Would she even recognize him? Their love was a fierce wildfire, now reduced to a smoldering ash. Silenced by the distance and the scars of time. As rain began to pour, people rushed past, umbrellas blooming like flowers. But Jackson felt frozen, eyes locked on Sarah and her companion. Just when he thought he'd work up the courage to step outside, the door swung open. He held his breath. Would she turn? Would she see the man who had walked away from it all? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The storm raged on outside, but inside, time seemed to stand still. Jackson's heart raced faster than the rain drumming against the roof, the chaos of the world around him fading to a whisper. No one around him noticed the tension in the air, how the atmosphere crackled with potential like the calm before a tornado. The coffee shop felt like a movie set, and he was a spectator waiting for the next scene to unfold. He clenched his fists, nails digging into his palm. Would he confront her? Or would he forever remain a shadow in her past? As Sarah turned slightly, catching the glimmer of lightning in her eyes, everything felt like it was about to explode. What would happen if he stepped out? Would it change everything forever? The universe seemed to hold its breath. As the door of the coffee shop swung open, a gust of damp air rushed inside, sending a chill down Jackson's spine. He hesitated, torn between the warmth of the cafe and the cold rain drenching the world outside. Then, her laughter broke through the pounding storm, a sound both familiar and disorienting. He had missed it. Sarah stepped out onto the sidewalk, her hair plastered to her forehead. She didn't notice him, not yet. Jackson's heart sank and swelled in the same breath. He was caught in a limbo, an unspoken agony pulsed in the spaces between them. She stood there, wrapped in her own little world, eyes lit up with whatever joys existed in her new life. The man beside her leaned in, whispering something that made her smile widen, and just like that, Jackson felt like an intruder in their moment. The urgency of the storm seemed to reflect his inner turmoil. He needed to act. Desperation clawed its way to the surface. Just as he finally gathered the courage to take a step forward, his foot froze in place. The worst possible scenario crashed down. What if she hated him? What if the sight of him dredged up old wounds? The memories were chapters in a book he had abandoned. What if she had closed it forever? Suddenly, a sharp crack of thunder echoed around him, jolting him from his thoughts. He glanced outside again. Sarah turned abruptly, her gaze shifting just enough that their eyes could meet. Time stretched, the rain blurred everything else away. Panic surged as Jackson's body betrayed him. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He wanted to shout, to tell her he had made a mistake, to reclaim the love they had once known. But all he could do was stand and watch, paralyzed by the weight of the past. Sarah's smile faded, replaced by confusion. The man at her side pushed back, looking for the source of her concern. Jackson feared he was nothing more than a ghost haunting the edges of her life. Bile rose in his throat as doubts and regrets swirled into a tempest of what-ifs. Sarah. He finally managed, the name escaping his lips like a prayer. She turned fully to face him, her expression transforming from surprise to disbelief, then to something deeper. He noticed the way her eyes shimmered. Was it hope, or dread? Jackson. Her voice broke slightly, painted with an emotion he couldn't decipher. The world around them faded into a blur, filled with the sounds of the storm, the rattle of cars, the distant chatter of passers-by. None of it mattered anymore. The space between them crackled with unsaid words and buried feelings, heavy enough to drown in, but just as he took a step forward, ready to bridge the chasm between their hearts, the man beside her tightened his grip on her arm. "Who the hell is this?" he demanded, a growl brewing in his voice. Jackson felt the air thicken, felt his resolve waver. What was meant to be a reunion was now a confrontation. "Wait, I can explain," Jackson began, but was interrupted by another rumble of thunder. The storm had reached its peak intensity, matching the pulse of his heart. Would he fight for her? Or would he falter, letting fate decide their paths once more? The raindrops fell like judgment from the sky, and in that moment, something deep within Jackson stirred. He wouldn't run away again. As he took a deep breath, adrenaline surged through him. He had to know, did she still want him? And with that thought echoing in his mind, he stepped forward into the chaos. Jackson's heart raced as he stepped into the storm, eyes locked on Sarah, the woman he thought he had lost forever. The rain lashed against him, but nothing could drown out the pounding of his heart. He could feel the tension in the air, a heavy mix of confusion and anger radiating from the man beside her. "Who are you?" the man challenged, sizing Jackson up as if he were a threat. Jackson couldn't tell if the glare was possessive or protective. He had expected resistance, but not this level of hostility. I'm Jackson," he managed to sputter, each word fighting its way past the lump in his throat. He felt small, exposed, like a moth trapped in a candle's flame. Still, he pressed on. "I came back for Sarah." The man's grip on Sarah's arm tightened. "She told you to stay away." Jackson's chest tightened at the raw truth of that statement. He remembered the words, the pain of separation, and the silence that followed. The storm around them echoed his frustration. "Things were never this simple," he shot back, his voice trembling slightly under the weight of conflicting emotions. Sarah stood there, one hand clenched at her side, the other still held captive by the man who seemed to loom larger with every moment. Confusion flickered across her features, but so did something softer, a flicker of hope or perhaps a question. "Do you really want to know why I left?" Jackson continued, desperation fueling every word. "I made mistakes, but I didn't stop loving you." The rain beat down harder, drenching him to the bone, but he didn't care. The storm raged around them, but in this moment, it felt like nothing compared to the storm brewing between them. The man's eyes narrowed, and he stepped closer to Sarah, blocking her view of Jackson. "You think you can just stroll back into her life? After what you did?" He spat, voice deadly low, as if each word was a knife, meant to cut deep. "Please, let her speak," Jackson implored, eyes fixed on Sarah. He could see the conflict simmering behind her gaze. "You deserve to choose, Sarah. I can't make you do anything, but I'm here." For a heartbeat, silence enveloped them. The world outside faded but, somehow, the downpour felt louder. Sarah's breath hitched, and Jackson's heart soared at the thought that she might still feel something. Finally, she opened her mouth, words on the tip of her tongue, then froze, glancing at the man beside her who was still watching Jackson like a predator surveying its prey. "Let her go," Jackson urged, nerves straining through his body. "This isn't about you." Just then, a crack of lightning erupted in the sky, illuminating the shadows around them. Sarah flinched, and in that moment, the man hesitated, just enough for Jackson to see the flicker of hurt in Sarah's eyes. "Sarah, please," Jackson whispered, his voice breaking with emotion. "You deserve to be happy. And if that means it's not with me, I need to know." The words hung in the air, waiting for her response, each heartbeat an eternity. Jackson's stomach twisted as he realized this was the moment that would redefine everything. All his hope, his fears, it all came down to this. Before Sarah could draw a breath to answer, another clap of thunder rolled across the sky, drowning out the storm inside him. The man stepped in front of her, casting a shadow over their moment. "Enough!" he shouted, fists clenched. "You're nothing to her." Jackson's jaw clenched, every fiber of his being tingling with both rage and despair. What would Sarah choose? The silence haunted him as the rain continued to pour, a perfect reflection of the turmoil brewing in their hearts. In that electric moment, Jackson took one last look at Sarah. Her answer felt like a thread dangling in the chaos, one he desperately hoped she wouldn't let slip away. And just as his own belief began to falter, he determined he wouldn't let this chance slip through his fingers. "Sarah," he called, voice trembling with raw emotion, "I'm ready for whatever it is you have to say." But before she could respond, darkness loomed closer, and everything hung in uncertainty. "Then prepare yourself," the man snarled, stepping forward, ready to ignite the storm. What would happen next? Would love survive the chaos, or would it be swept away in the rain? Jackson's breath came in quick bursts, his eyes darting between Sarah and the man standing before her. The tension was like a live wire, crackling in the air and setting his nerves ablaze. Just when he thought the storm that raged outside could be the worst of it, a deeper chaos stirred within. "Let her choose," he said again, more firmly now. His voice was thick with emotion as he fought to stand his ground. "She deserves better than this, than you." "Better?" The man sneered. "You think running away and leaving her in the dark is what she deserves?" His words hissed through the rain, each syllable dripping with disdain. Jackson's head spun. Memories of why he had left her crashed back like waves against a weak dam. Fear of losing himself again the moment he saw Sarah had driven him away. "I was scared," Jackson admitted, vulnerability crashing over him like the downpour soaking his clothes. "But I want to fight for her now. I want to show her that I can be the man she deserves." The man just laughed. "What makes you think you can just waltz back into her life? You've made your choice, Jackson. You chose to walk away once. What is to stop you from doing it again?" A pulse of rage flared in Jackson's chest. "I've changed. I see that now. This time, I won't back down. I'll do whatever it takes." Desperation filled his voice, but he sensed a shift in the man's posture. Doubt flickered in those steel-blue eyes. "Sarah, please," he pleaded, desperation giving his words a raw edge, "you have a right to speak your heart." He turned to her, desperation etched across his face. "Don't let fear decide for you. You deserve to be heard." The rain fell harder, the sound deafening around them, but Jackson could almost hear Sarah wrestling with her thoughts. Her fingers trembled in the man's grip, conflicted emotions swirling in her eyes like the storm itself. "Let me go," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper, yet filled with a strength that surprised Jackson. The tension in the air shifted at her declaration. "Sarah," the man's voice dropped, laced with a sense of impending rage as he tightened his hold on her again. "You don't mean that. You need me. I've protected you. Is that protection?" Sarah's gaze snapped to his, fierce and unwavering. "Or is it control? Jackson felt hope ignite inside him. There it was, the softness of a heart yearning to break free. You're not a prisoner, Sarah. You are so much more than that. Choose for yourself. His heart hammered against his ribs, urging her to see the truth that stood right before her. A flash of lightning split the sky, illuminating her face, vulnerable yet radiant in this moment. Let her go, Jackson demanded, his voice rising above the storm. Something powerful surged through him, igniting the fire of his resolve. For an instant, the man's resolve wavered. As he looked at Sarah, Jackson caught the faintest tremor of his control slipping. You'll regret this, he warned, the fear in his voice hidden beneath a mask of anger. I'd rather regret choosing for myself than living in fear, Sarah shot back, breaking free from his grip with a sudden movement that shocked Jackson. The man stumbled back, disbelief flashing across his features. You think you know what's best for you? Think again. In that electric moment, Jackson stepped closer to Sarah, the space between them amplifying their shared fears and hopes. I'll stand with you, he breathed, barely able to contain the torrent of emotions that swirled inside. But just then, their moment of recognition shattered. The sound of sirens wailed in the distance, cutting through the storm like a blade. The chaos had only just begun. Jackson turned, heart racing. What now? The man's eyes glinted with something dark as he stepped back, rage morphing into something more sinister. You want her? You'll have to fight for her. Shocked murmurs slipped through the rain, voices rising around them. They weren't alone anymore. As the shadows closed in, Jackson's heart pounded in time with the relentless rhythm of the storm. The choice had been made, but would it be enough to hold on? Against the forces swirling around them, was love enough to survive the tempest brewing in the city? Would it be his fight to win? Jackson could feel adrenaline surging through him like the raging storm overhead. The air crackled not just with electricity, but with uncertainty. He glanced nervously at Sarah, her eyes wide but resolute. The man who had claimed her felt the sudden shift and took a step toward them, fists clenched. Don't think this is over, he sneered, determination solidifying his stance. I won't just let you walk away. Not after everything. Do you really believe you can control her? Jackson shot back, fighting the wave of fear threatening to choke him. Do you honestly think that can hold kindness and fear in the same breath? You'll lose. Sarah looked from Jackson to the man, confusion mingling with an emerging strength. Sarah, Jackson whispered urgently, you need to trust yourself. We can leave now. Together. You think it's that easy? The man laughed, venom dripping from his words. You think she'll just skip off with you? She's mine, and I'll do anything to make sure she stays. This isn't yours to decide. Sarah asserted, and there was a newfound fire in her tone that made Jackson's heart leap. The rain poured harder, but now it felt like a shield, a curtain hiding their escalating confrontation from prying eyes. Enough. The man took a step forward, and Jackson's instincts screamed. Time slowed. Without thinking, he lunged between Sarah and her captor, ready to protect her at all costs. The man's fist flew in a blur, connecting with Jackson's jaw. Pain exploded through him, sending a jolt of shock racing down his spine. He staggered back, but the defiance that burned within him refused to die. He couldn't back down now. Not when Sarah was watching. Get out of here. Jackson yelled, struggling to regain his composure. I'll handle this. Fear flickered in Sarah's eyes, but the resolve remained. I'm not leaving you. A loud shout erupted from the now growing crowd of onlookers, their murmurs mixing with the howl of the wind as they realized they were witnessing something dark and violent unfolding in front of them. Call the police. Someone shouted, voices rising with panic, echoing off the distant walls of the buildings. They'll only make it worse. The man snarled, the frantic energy in the air feeding his rage as he began to circle Jackson like a predator ready to attack. You'll wish you never crossed me. Jackson could feel the raw fear mingling with anger fueling him. A heavy thud of raindrops seemed to echo his racing thoughts. What could he do? The crowd's presence was growing, but would they intervene? Every second felt fleeting, each heartbeat drumming a rhythm of impending disaster. They locked eyes again, and Jackson saw the flicker of hope in Sarah's expression. In that moment, he realized he would fight not just for love, but for her freedom from this cycle of darkness. The man lunged. Jackson dodged. A wild swing and another tumble. The adrenaline coursed through him. He felt the pain in his face but dismissed it, focusing on Sarah, who watched with bated breath as the chaos unfolded. A sharp crack echoed through the air, an object hurled accidentally, colliding against the pavement nearby. Was it a thrown bottle? The crowd gasped. "Stay back!" Jackson shouted, facing down the man, his heart hammering recklessly. And then, out of the corner of his eye, Jackson spotted a patrol car racing around the corner, lights flashing, sirens screaming, a rushing tide parting through the storm. Sarah, we could be saved. His mind raced as the man hesitated for just a moment. But would they arrive in time? Jackson felt a tight knot in his chest. Was there enough strength left to resist the darkness before the dawn of their rescue? Make your choice. The man roared just as the sirens reached a deafening crescendo. In that chaotic instant, everything hung in the balance. Jackson had to act, but would it be the right move? The air was thick with uncertainty, and as Sarah's steady gaze met his once more, he realized that love wasn't simply the choice between them. It was a fight to survive, to break free, to finally choose what was right. Would they weather this storm together, or would the darkness swallow them whole? The answers were just as violent as the rain. Jackson's heart thundered in his chest as the brutal words hung in the air like the storm clouds above. Time warped, stretching every moment into eternity. There was no going back. He had to act. "Sarah, I need you to trust me." Jackson shouted, his voice a desperate plea echoed against the chaos swirling around them. The man's laughter was hollow, menacing. "Trust him. Look where trusting men has led you, Sarah." His eyes sparked with madness, a primal energy ready to explode. The crowd around them buzzed nervously, an unpredictable audience waiting to see how this deadly scene would unfold. Jackson saw the hint of fear flicker across Sarah's face. He needed to protect her. To get her out of this nightmare. "Run!" he yelled, every nerve screaming at him to act fast. But before she could move, the man surged forward, a viper ready to strike. Jackson had only a split second to react. He charged, slamming into the man's shoulder, knocking him off balance. A grunt of fury escaped the man as he stumbled back. Jackson seized the moment. Adrenaline surged as he squared his shoulders, prepared for another attack. The rain slicked the ground beneath them, each drop a reminder of the stakes that were higher than just fists and fury. The crowd gasped collectively, whispers of uncertainty and fear rippling among them. "What are they doing?" someone murmured. "Somebody stop this." Through the chaos, a siren screamed closer, cutting through the air like a knife. Jackson could feel the approaching sirens vibrating deep within him, a promise of salvation but also a ticking clock. He couldn't let the man regain his footing. With a swift movement, Jackson ducked under a wild swing aimed at his head, countering with a punch that landed hard against the man's side. The man grunted, staggering as Jackson pressed the advantage. "Get away from her!" he growled, his voice low and menacing. "Fool," the man wheezed, a twisted smile creeping back onto his face, "you have no idea what she is capable of. You think she'll choose you?" The taunt cut Jackson deeper than any physical blow, but he couldn't let it show. Instinct kicked in. A well-aimed jab to the jaw sent the man reeling, the look of surprise priceless yet fleeting. "Sarah, you need to go." Jackson yelled again, his eyes locking onto hers, willing her to move. "I won't leave you." She shouted back, her resolve stronger than before. A chorus of horns blared as the patrol car swerved into view. Two officers jumped out, one with a baton raised, the other shouting commands. The crowd's chaos simmered into a tense silence, all eyes fixed on the unfolding drama. "Step away," called one of the officers, his voice sharp and authoritative. Tension hung thick in the air, the man's anger now ignited by the sight of law enforcement. He turned, eyes spitting rage. "See what you've done," he screamed at Jackson, the bitterness lacing his words. "You think this ends here? I'll come for you both." Jackson felt a tidal wave of dread wash over him, the man retreating backward into the shadows as the officers moved in. The rain began to lessen, but the fright was still palpable. As the officers handcuffed the man, Jackson met Sarah's gaze. Her face was pale, a storm of emotions churning behind her eyes. He stepped toward her, relief flooding him, but before he could reach her, she took a step back. "Jackson," a piercing click interrupted their moment, a heavy-set officer looking directly at Jackson. "You need to step back. We'll handle this." But all Jackson could focus on was Sarah's expression, conflicted, uncertain. There was something brewing beneath her surface, something he couldn't quite grasp as the man casting shadows over them was led away. "Sarah, we can talk," he began, reaching out, but she turned away slightly, glancing at the departing figure of her captor, something asking, pleading inside her eyes. In that heartbeat, Jackson felt the storm of their fight dissipate, but an even darker storm was brewing within Sarah's heart. "Why did you stay with him?" she barely whispered, the words like daggers that he opened his mouth to answer, but nothing came out. The weight of their reality pressed down on him. And with a moment of clarity, he understood. The true fight wasn't just against the man, but the demons they both carried inside. And just as the realization set in, a booming voice interrupted from behind. "We need to go. Now." Jackson turned as the crowd began to scatter, the adrenaline fading, replaced by confusion and dread about what this meant for them both. "Sarah," he called, but his voice was swallowed by the storm. Would they find a way through the fog, or was this just the beginning of a deeper battle unseen? The city swirled around them, each shadow holding a secret, each sound an echo of what was to come. With questions lingering like the mist in the night, he realized their fight was far from over. Jackson felt the world tilt around him, the chaos of the crowd fading into a dull roar as fear snaked into his stomach. The sound of retreating footsteps from the officers echoed in his ears, and he fought to keep his focus on Sarah. She was slipping away, layered in confusion and hurt, an invisible wall building between them. "Sarah, please," he pleaded, his voice rising above the dwindling noise of the crowd. "We need to talk about this." Her eyes flickered back to him, an emotional tempest churning in their depths. "Talk? What's left to say? You just fought for me like I'm some prize. No. It's not like that." Jackson interjected quickly, his hands balled into tight fists to keep himself steady. "It's about protecting you. You mean everything to me." "Everything?" she shot back, shaking her head. "That's easy to say, but do you even know what I've been through?" Each word struck like a hammer, but he couldn't stand there and let her drift into her past, one he knew little about but felt the icy fingers of fear creeping through him. What other demons lurked just beneath a surface barely scratched? "Let me help you," he begged, his heart racing. "You don't have to face this alone." "Alone?" Her smile twisted into something sad, almost mocking. "I've lived alone, Jackson. You have no idea." The intensity in her gaze pierced through to him, igniting a mixture of concern and guilt. The man her captor was gone, yet the scars he left were etched deeper than any physical mark. Jackson wanted to reach for her, to bridge the chasm that had grown, but doubt clouded every hesitation he made. Suddenly, from the edge of the crowd, a familiar face emerged. A tall figure wrapped in a dark coat cut through the misty rain. Brad, the man from Sarah's past, the one who had haunted her. "Sarah! There you are." Brad's voice sliced through the tension like a knife. A blend of urgency and desire radiated from him. Jackson's gut twisted. The sight ignited a fire of protectiveness that surged through him again. This was what he feared the most, a return of the shadows, snatching Sarah back. Get away from her. Jackson's words were low, trembling with fury. He stepped forward, positioning himself between them, ready for any confrontation, but Sarah called out, her voice surprisingly steady. Brad, don't. You shouldn't be here. What do you mean? He approached, his eyes darting from Jackson to Sarah. I had to find you. You don't know what he'll do to you. Jackson shot her a frantic look. Who? What is he talking about? The world dropped away, narrowing onto their triangle of tension. The truth was spiraling dangerously close yet felt elusive. Jackson, she started, but the panic etched across her features sent dread deep into him. Tell me the truth. He shouted, the volume of his emotions spilling over. Brad took one more step, but Sarah blocked him. Her resolve firmed, but the shivering fear was unmistakable in her eyes. I can handle this. Just let me explain. Explain what? Jackson half scoffed, half pleaded. That you still have ties to this guy. That he might come after you again. No. She snapped, her voice trembling but full of fire. It's more complicated than that. The rain softened into a steady drizzle, but the cold chilled Jackson to the bone, a premonition creeping into the back of his mind. Uncertainty loomed larger than life, he could almost taste it. Sarah. Brad's voice cracked, desperation etched deeply into his features. Do you really think you can face this on your own? We need to get out of here. She echoed, disbelief lacing her tone. You think running away will solve anything? Jackson's head spun. The crowd dissolved into shadows around them, the sirens from earlier now muted against the turmoil unraveling. The dynamic shifted rapidly. Each word was a brick on a heavy wall of secrecy, and he was losing the thread. Sarah, please. Tell me you want to run back to him. Jackson cried, but the look in her eyes told him everything. As the pieces began clicking into a much darker puzzle, Jackson realized they were standing on the brink of an unseen trap. Suddenly, another sound emerged, a shrieking siren pushing through the dissipating crowd. Fear clenched Jackson's chest. They found us. He yelled, sensing an immediate danger. But as Jackson turned back, Sarah was gone, urgency driving her forward toward Brad, leaving him in stunned silence. Sarah! He shouted, panic exploding inside him. He sprinted after them, confusion and urgency fueling his every step. What had she learned? Why was she going back to him? Jackson could hardly breathe as he tore through the gathering, the tensions tangling and twisting behind him, turning into a spine-chilling darkness. With his heart racing and the sirens echoing around them, he pushed forward. If he didn't catch her now, what waits on the other side could tear them apart forever. What choice would she make? All he knew was that the fight for her was just beginning. Jackson's legs moved on instinct, each stride feeling heavier than the last as he chased after Sarah and Brad. The crowd, once a mass of faces blending into one, now seemed to conspire against him, bodies shifting and turning, like a living wall that sought to hold him back. Panic surged in him, hot and suffocating, a reminder that time mattered more than life itself. As he pushed forward, he heard snippets of conversation surrounding him, whispers about danger, glances of concern. But he hardly noticed anyone but Sarah. She had been there, just ahead, slipping through the gaps as if the shadows themselves were covering her path. Just when he thought he could reach her, another body blocked his way. Hey, man, slow down! Shouted an onlooker, grabbing Jackson's shoulder. He shrugged them off, heart racing, not sparing a moment to respond. Ahead, he glimpsed Sarah's silhouette. Her hair clung to her face, framing eyes that seemed lost in a storm. Brad's shadow loomed next to her, hands gesturing wildly, words flowing too fast for Jackson to comprehend. Sarah! He called again, desperation clawing at his voice. Please! Come back! We can work this out. But she didn't turn, fury and fear clashing in her stance as if she were determining her final move. Jackson's chest tightened. Each second counted, and so did each choice she made. Brad was a storm force in her life, someone who could thunder back into her world with promises and ghosts of their shared dark past. Jackson had known this moment might come, but standing on this precipice felt unreal. Just listen to him. You don't have to do this. Brad called, his voice a blend of urgency and calm, but to Jackson, it sounded like a siren luring her toward a cliff. Finally, in a burst of courage, Jackson charged again, darting between bystanders. Just as he reached them, Sarah turned, and their eyes locked. Time froze, a tremor of recognition breaking through blood-rushing panic. A flicker of something vulnerable shimmered in her expression, as if she were deciding between two worlds. One was torn, the other uncertain. "Jackson, you don't understand," she shouted, desperation lacing her tone but still contained in that heartbreaking fierceness. "What do I not understand?" he replied, his voice strained. "That you think you can face him alone." His heart ached at the thought. The learned helplessness in her gaze spiked his protective instincts, fueling his determination. "You said it's complicated. Let me in. We fight together." But then, amid their charged moment, Brad took a step closer, blocking Jackson's view, his entire demeanor shifting, eyes narrowing. "You're wrong, Sarah," he said, voice low and grounded. "Running away is the safest option. He's dangerous. You need to put your trust in me." Jackson felt the ground beneath him lift, an earthquake of fear rattling his soul. "Trust? You think she should trust you?" he spat, eyes flaring in anger. Every fiber in him screamed that Brad might be dragging Sarah deeper into something twisted. "You're the one who hurt her. You really want to know who I am?" Brad shot back, anger igniting in his posture. "I'm the only reason she is still standing here. I'm trying to save her." But Jackson could see the weight of her hesitation, the raw, tender edges of her past haunting them like ghosts. "Is that what this is?" Jackson pressed, lifting his chin defiantly. "A savior complex? You're playing her fears against her, and you know it." "Enough!" Sarah shouted, her voice slicing through their tension like glass. "Both of you, stop. You don't see what's at stake." In this clash of wills, her voice, while powerful, trembled with a deep current of fear. Jackson noticed her glance dart nervously behind her, and dread washed over him anew. Before he could react, a flash of movement came from the shadows behind them. The police had arrived. Blue and red lights spun angrily, illuminating the shadows around them, creating a kaleidoscope of urgency. Jackson's heart sank. They couldn't let them get to Sarah again. "Look, you both need to go now," Sarah nearly shouted, panic erupting. Beneath the facade of strength she wore. "No." Jackson lunged forward instinctively, but before he could catch her, she had already turned away. "Let us go, Sarah," Brad urged, and she took a few hesitant steps toward him, glancing back at Jackson, her expression twisting in uncertainty. Fear became a pounding drum in Jackson's ears, raw and relentless. "Sarah! Don't!" he shouted, desperation clawing through him, but it was too late. Sarah hesitated, torn between two paths, two futures, and then made her choice, racing toward the shadows with Brad at her side. Jackson stood frozen as the distance between them stretched like a chasm. Alone, with sirens echoing in the background, his heart sank into a churning pit of torment. What had she just walked into? Would he ever find her? The sirens blared louder, the sound becoming a haunting reminder that there was no turning back now. The sense of loss rushed through him, thick and suffocating. He had to move, he had to figure out how to bring her back home. He turned, head spinning with fear and resolve. Now, the real battle was about to begin. Jackson's heart pounded like a war drum as he sprinted away from the scene. The crowd still teemed around him, oblivious to the chaos that had just disrupted his life. He submerged himself into the nearest alleyway, wanting to escape the flashing lights, the muffled sirens, and the crushing wave of panic. Inside, it was dark and damp, the air heavy with the smell of old garbage and something acrid. In the shadows, his thoughts spiraled. What could he do? Sarah was gone, slipping away into the night with Brad. That reality carved a deep ache in his chest. A sudden noise caught his attention. He turned, muscles tensing, ready for a confrontation. Heart racing, he squinted into the darkness, trying to make out any shapes, any movements. A rat scurried away, and for a moment, the tension broke, just a glimmer of humor in an otherwise dark moment. But then thoughts of Sarah flooded back. Tension replaced humor like a tidal wave. He whipped out his phone, staring at the screen. No messages. No missed calls. Nothing. The void echoed back to him, like the uncertainty clutching at his mind. His finger hovered over her name, wavering with indecision. She had made her choice, hadn't she? But what if she needed him? With shaking hands, he typed a text but paused, hesitating. Would it help, or would it just push her further away? What if Brad intercepted? A car skirted past the alley, headlights illuminating a splash of trash and graffiti. Jackson's thoughts drifted back to Brad. That man had always been a tempest, unpredictable and dangerous. Was he hiding something? He felt a sudden determination ignite within him. Jackson needed to find answers. With urgency fueling him, he slipped back into the thrumming energy of the city, weaving through alleyways and bustling avenues, each turn a scramble toward the unknown. He needed intel, something to track down Sarah. As he rounded a corner, he spotted a pair of guys, leaning against a wall smoking. They looked up, eyes narrowing on him. Jackson could sense something dark flickering in their expressions. "Hey, you looking for someone?" one asked, an edge in his voice. "Yeah," Jackson replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Have you seen Brad?" "Depends on what you want him for," the other snickered, eyeing Jackson with a mix of amusement and caution. "Last I heard, he's stirring up trouble." "You sure you want to cross paths with him? Just tell me where." Jackson snapped, feeling his anger boil. He didn't have the luxury to tiptoe around these guys. "Chill, man. You don't want to mess with him," the first guy said, taking a drag. "But if you insist, I heard he was lurking around the old warehouse by the docks. Might want to hurry before something goes down." "Thanks," Jackson muttered, realizing he had no choice. He turned and took off. The city pulsed around him, buildings closing in, shadows stretching and scratching at the edges of his vision. His feet moved faster, breath quickening, heart racing, not just from exertion, but the looming sense of dread that something terrible was about to happen. The warehouse loomed ahead, a rusted fortress set against the darkening sky. As he approached, an eerie hush fell. The noise of the city faded, replaced by the rhythmic lapping of water against the docks. He hesitated, a raw fear knotting in his stomach. What would he find inside? Brad? Sarah? Or something far worse? Just as he prepared to step through the creaking door, a figure emerged from the shadows, familiar, haunting. It was someone he hadn't seen in years, someone who could shatter his world all over again. "Jackson," the voice whispered, carrying a weight of unresolved history that sent chills spiraling down his spine. Everything he had fought for stood at the precipice of another dangerous revelation. Who could this be? What would they reveal? Inside, the storm was brewing and he was about to step right into its eye. Jackson stood outside the old warehouse, the salty breeze whipping at his soaked clothes and tousled hair. He could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him, heart racing as he tried to prepare for whatever lay inside. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing he had to jump but terrified of what awaited him below. With each step forward, his pulse thudded against his temples. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit expanse littered with shadows. He squinted, searching for any sign of Sarah, any hint of the turmoil she was caught in. But it was eerily silent, the air thick with tension and uncertainty. Jackson, the soft voice cut through the silence, stopping him in his tracks. He turned slowly, knees buckling at the sight of her. Sarah, standing there, framed by the shambles of the warehouse, was like a dream and a nightmare all at once. She wasn't my Sarah anymore. The light in her eyes had dimmed, replaced by a flicker of fear and uncertainty. Beside her stood Brad, lurking in the shadows as though he had crafted this moment, twisting it to his advantage. Get away from her. Jackson's voice carried a raw edge. He stepped forward, each toe deliberately pushing against the ground, determined to shield Sarah from the world and from the man she had chosen. You don't control her anymore. His heart screamed for her to run to him, to break free of the chains, the invisible bonds Brad held over her. She doesn't need saving, Jackson, Brad sneered, oozing a confidence that only fueled Jackson's rising fury. It's cute that you think this is about you. No, it's about her, Jackson shot back, breathing heavily. This ends now. His eyes locked on Sarah, her pale face, her trembling hands. She was caught in a web that was suffocating her, but the sharpness in her gaze told him she still had a fight inside. Wait. Sarah's voice broke through the tension, commanding their attention. There was a new steadiness there, one he hadn't seen before. You both of you need to stop. She took a step forward, closer to Jackson yet still anchored to Brad's darkness. I need to speak for myself. Jackson held his breath, his heart in his throat. Did she mean it? Could she find the strength to reclaim herself? The shadows of the past and the weight of their memories collided in that dim light. I made choices, both good and bad, she continued, chin high, voice steady. But I am not your possession, Brad. I don't belong to anyone. I'm tired of being held hostage by the fear of your choices. Brad's eyes flared with disbelief. You think you can just walk away? I kept you safe when no one else would. Safe? Sarah's voice sharpened. Or bound? You wrapped a leash around my heart, and I thought it was love. But it was fear disguised as protection. Her eyes blazed, glancing toward Jackson. I let you dictate my life, and I can't do that anymore. The air crackled with tension, and for a moment, Jackson dared to hope. You're strong, Sarah. You've always been, he whispered, willing her to feel the love that still flowed between them, a current invisible but powerful. Brad scoffed, stepping between them, a barrier made of arrogance and anger. You think the world is sunshine and rainbows? You think this little love story has a happy ending? Let me tell you, it doesn't end cleanly. Jackson felt the spark of rage ignite within him. You're wrong. You're just a chapter in her story, not the author. He stepped forward again, unwilling to let the bond between him and Sarah unravel. That chapter ends here. The tension peaked as Brad took a decisive step, fists clenching. You're going to regret this, Jackson. But Sarah stepped in, her voice ringing like a bell. No more. You don't own me, Brad. Not anymore. The conviction in her words struck like a hammer, creating a ripple of disbelief in the air. Don't do this, Brad pleaded, desperation creeping into his tone, vulnerability peeking through. What about everything we had? What we had was built on silence and control, she challenged, her eyes painting vivid pictures of her past heartbreaks and the strength she found in reclaiming herself. Jackson moved forward, gently taking her hand, anchoring her to this moment of reclamation. The thrill of hope coursed through him. You're not alone, Sarah. You never were. We'll face whatever comes next together. Brad's expression morphed, shifting from anger to pure despair, as if the ground beneath him suddenly felt unsteady. You'll lose everything, he spat back, but beneath his bravado, Jackson saw something else, a hint of fear threatening to unravel the monster he had created. Sarah turned back to him, resilience etched into her features. I'd rather lose everything than lose myself, she declared, squeezing Jackson's hand tightly. Suddenly, the world felt different. The storm inside the warehouse began to calm as the echoes of their tumultuous history faded. The sirens could still be heard in the distance, but they were merely a whisper now, a soft reminder that their journey would be faced together. As they stepped toward the exit, leaving the shadows behind, Sarah didn't look back. They walked into the light of the outside world, hand in hand, ready to embrace whatever came next. Their bond was now irrefutable, a union forged in the fires of chaos, as intoxicating as it was terrifying. But one thing was for sure: love had survived the storm, and together, they could weather anything life threw their way. Now, it was time to let go of the past and embrace a brighter future. So as they emerged together, take this moment to reflect, and join their journey. Don't miss out on what comes next. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about their journey, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your voice matters, and only true fans understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions.